Hello everyone and welcome back to Parkitect. So last time we beat the Maple Meadows campaign or scenario. Okay. And now we're gonna go on to Chanute Airfield. So this is an abandoned airfield, and now the land is gonna be turned into an amusement park. But we need to preserve the existing structures. So we have just one not optional goal, which is pretty easy, of having 250 guests in our park. So I'm pretty sure we're going to be able to do that with no issues. But we also have the goal to sell at least 400 park tickets and to complete all of the goals by the end of June of the second year, which I did manage to do all of the optional goals with Maple Meadows. But that wasn't like on purpose. It's not something I'm like very wanting to do. I'm more so just focused on making sure that the parks are presentable and like just having fun while I'm doing it. But we're gonna go ahead and start, and I really like this specific scenario. I've played on it a few times, and like each time I have, I've come up with something that I'm really proud of. So I'm hoping that I can continue with that pattern. But we start with $22,000, which isn't that much. And this is what we have as like a little park entrance building. The guests just come from here. And then we have this as our depot. Just a big airport building. And we have a few rides. We have the car ride, the Ferris wheel, and the plane carousel, which we're definitely going to be using. Pretty much everyone that I've ever watched do this one scenario puts the plane carousel somewhere around here, and I'm probably going to end up doing the same, just because it's such like a nice spot for it. Anyway, we have more thrill rides. We have the Gravitron, the Jumper, the Twister, and the Wipeout. Then roller coasters, we have the Wild Mouse, the Mini Coaster, and the Junior Coaster. So I'm going to go ahead and search for that right now. I'll give $350, because I'm going to want to build a high-intensity roller coaster in this scenario. That's, like, my number one goal. No transport rides, and the log flume, which I'm probably not going to be using. Because, I don't know, it doesn't really fit what I'm going for. Which, if you're wondering, I think I'm gonna go for like a very not specific modern sort of look. So just taking inspiration from these buildings, and then I don't know, just like modern contemporary architecture is something that I'm really into personally. So I'm gonna try to put some of that in here. But that's pretty much it. I'll see you guys at the end of our first time-lapse segment. Alright, so we're starting off by just making the path a bit more detailed. I put down a little brick sort of sidewalk on the existing path, and then we're gonna build a little sort of main street, I guess you could call it. I'm not really sure if I'd call it a main street, but it's just like a little row of modern buildings. So I'm experimenting with the glass wall pieces to make windows that are different from, the windows that are found in the details tab of the like decoration menu. So we've done that little corner building, and now we're moving on to, I guess, the main building of this semi-main street, and this is going to serve as like our food court for this entrance area. So I'm just playing around with some different pieces that we get access to in this scenario, and just trying to make a sort of detailed structure. With my style of building, I don't detail like crazy, but I feel like with this specific style of architecture, it's important to have a lot of detail, or at least some detail, because the buildings themselves are so simple, and when translated into this like ultra minimalistic art style of Parkitect, it can be a bit much. So I wanted to make sure that there's still plenty of detail in these buildings, even though they're in a simple little style. And I really was set on using this entrance booth piece. I don't know why, but I end up bringing it back in a different building in this scenario, so it's all good. And then when I was like planning this park in my head, I had this idea of like this corner building that I really wanted to do, and I don't know why I was so fixated on it, but I really wanted to use the new hanger roof and wall pieces that are like sheet metal with the windows to make like just a little 2x2 building, and I think it's really cute, so I'm glad that I did it. I was gonna put like a sign there, and then I just ended up not putting anything there, I don't think. Just leaving it bare, which, you know, is fine. Not everything has to be like ultra mega detailed, which is something that is good to know, so that I don't spend hours on every single building, focusing on little details that in the grand scheme of things end up not mattering so much. You know, in this game, I feel like as long as you get the general gist of your buildings down, then it's all good. That's how I feel, at least. But I've also seen some crazy detailed builds, so, you know, I think everyone just has their own little style, and, you know, you do what you do best. So I think this is what I do best. It's just sort of detailed, not really crazy detailed. And I used a lot of the new pillar pieces that are like the metal texture, to add some more pizzazz to some of these buildings. And here I am adding the plane carousel in the same spot that everyone else does, because it just fits so perfectly right there. And I gave it these colors, and these colors, this like greenish yellow, and the green and the blue, run throughout the whole park. I add some purple to the color scheme, and then in a future area there's some red, but other than that it's kind of good. So just covering up the queue line, I did this like half sheet metal, half glass roof. I thought it was cool. And then over here I'm gonna experiment with custom planters soon. After I put these fences down, I think I should be doing that, and these planters kind of run throughout the whole park. It was just something that I wanted to try, and I think I like how they came out. You know, it helps to break up the grid system of the game a little bit. So I put these like trees in the middle of them. I end up switching those for the cypress trees, I think, from the Booms and Blooms DLC. And then I'm just adding some, what are those called? Pavilions? You know, just like shade for the guests, for our peeps, so they're not in the scorching sun all day, because I know what it's like to be in a theme park where there's no shade whatsoever. And it's rough. So I want to make sure that our guests have a great experience. So we're just adding some details. Building this was a bit different to Maple Meadows, because with Maple Meadows I felt like I knew exactly where I was going. And I just like had a vision in my head, and it was easy to make that come to fruition. With this, I kind of had no idea what I was doing. So I end up playing around with things a lot, and just seeing where everything ends up. Like this diagonal building that I'm doing right now. I wanted a diagonal building to break up the grid, but I end up getting rid of this building completely and replacing it with something else, because I just wasn't happy with the way it came out. Looking back on it, I think I might have just kept this building, because the one that I replaced it with isn't much better. But I just thought it was a bit too big and blocky, which is something you can't really get away with when you're on the diagonal, because the diagonal walls are a bit bigger than the regular walls. which is just like the nature of a grid-based game, so it is what it is. But I just didn't love it, so you see there I fully got rid of it. And then over here I have two flat rides, the Gravitron and the Twister, and for some reason these were like not successful at all throughout the playthrough. I ended up setting them to cheaper than I normally would because the guests were just like not into it for whatever reason. I don't know, maybe it's something to do with like the preferences that they come with. So I'm just covering this queue and then trying to cover up the Twister. I change it up a little bit from this, I think it's like a flat roof with some glass in the middle is what I end up going with, or maybe it is this. I don't remember. To be so honest, this was recorded a little bit ago, and I'm just now doing this voiceover, so please forgive me if I forget anything or gloss over something that seems important. I promise I'm not doing it on purpose. I just could not record this voiceover any earlier than today. So, something I do regret about this recording is that it's very fidgety. I forgot that when you're like recording yourself playing this game, you're supposed to try and keep the camera as still as possible while building. And then I remember at some parts, like over here, I guess it's pretty still, but especially later on into this time lapse, the camera goes a little wild because instead of focusing down on one area at a time, my process for this part was very erratic and I was just doing whatever felt right in the moment. So I'm going back and forth between decorating different areas, and it's just a lot. So please forgive me for that. I think I'll make sure to remember that when I'm recording the next episode. I'll have to keep my camera a bit more still. But this is the other diagonal building that I was talking about that replaced the other one. And it's fine. I mean, it's just a brick building with a little diagonal jut out. So this holds a bathroom and I think maybe a shop. But this brick building actually inspired the like whole themed area that is going to go over here on this side of the park in the next time-lapse segment. So I did manage to get a little live action moment in between the two time-lapse segments, which is better than last time. Actually, no, I did have two live moments, but I didn't get to beat the campaign, so we do that this time. And here I'm just putting down another building. I'm sorry that I'm having trouble talking about what I'm really doing in the game, but this was just a lot of small little buildings all over to try and fill up this awkward space that I have. Because I don't know, I put the thrill rides in like weird positions, like just in the middle of the path. Probably wasn't smart, but it's fine. I like how this came out. I'm not like the most proud of it out of like anything I've ever done, but you know, it's nice. It's just a little park, you know, it's nothing special. But this building was inspired by the buildings that come with the scenario, with this like curved slope over the path and then the window. So I just used it as a little shop to connect to the path cover for the Gravitron, which is just a simple hanger style path cover. I love these hanger items for path covers. I feel like they look really real, like realistic, like that's what I would expect to see in a park. So I'm just doing some more details, trying to get everything looking okay. Using some trees now, finally. The first bits of foliage in this park. I wanted the foliage to be a bit more sparse than usual since we're in sort of an industrial area. I feel like the soil around here wouldn't be the best, so maybe not so many trees, but definitely a few to give some greenery, which is always nice. So I add some trucks, and just, as I said, like, really not focusing on one area, but getting a look at the whole park and seeing what's missing. And I don't know how I enjoyed the process. I think maybe I would have had more fun if I had just settled on decorating one area at a time, but, you know, we live and we learn. So I'm covering up the staff building now, since there was a pretty clear view of it from the guest path. I needed to make sure that they couldn't see too much of what was going on back there. So here I'm trying another diagonal building. Ended up just going with a regular building. And that's kind of it. I'm trying to think of stuff to talk about. This is, yeah, just like putting path decorations down. I don't know what was going on when I was building this. I was just all over the place. But the end result is fine. So, just trust the process. Yeah, and I put down some more trees and then string lights to make everything a bit more homey and like cozy, since I felt like this was so gray and drab and like modern. So the greenery definitely helped to liven it up a little bit. And then, you know, it really does make a difference when you're building versus when you're in like the live mode of the game and watching the ride spin around and all the guests walking through the park. I feel like it makes such a big difference. So if you aren't happy with the way that something's coming out, maybe hit play, and then you'll like it a bit more when everyone's walking around. Like right now, everything's just like spinning around. It's so much more lively. But I do forget to open the Gravitron for a while, which was dumb of me. But it's fine. We end up thriving in the money department in this scenario. At the end, I have more money than I can spend. So here I'm thinking about expanding into a new area. And something I did with this park that was different from Maple Meadows was I had different themed areas. They're not like crazy themed, but a little themed. So I'm adding a junior coaster in here, but we actually take this down and replace it with a wild mouse, because it just fit better in the area. I couldn't get this layout to work. I was having trouble fitting in a third helix, because I feel like that's, every junior coaster needs to have like 3 helixes and then it's all good. And the third helix was just giving me trouble. I don't know what was going on, but this does get taken down and replaced with a wild mouse, which I feel like fits the vibe of the park a bit more. A wild mouse is very like structured, and I don't know, I feel like all wild mouses are sort of the same, which fits this like industrial vibe, I think, of everything being like manufactured. So maybe it was a happy accident. But this wild mouse is pretty cute, I think. I don't know if I like it better than the wild mouse that I put in Maple Meadows. I don't love wild mouses in general. Wild mice? I've never thought of that. Is it wild mouses or wild mice? Probably wild mice, right? Okay. So I'm not a huge fan of wild mice. They're just not my cup of tea. But building them is pretty fun. I'm just hoping that I end up getting more roller coasters at the beginning of some of these future scenarios so that I don't have to keep relying on these wild mice to make me money. But that is the priority right now because I'm running a little bit low on funds. If you look in the bottom left, I only have $3,000, which is an okay amount in Parkitect terms. But at the end of this first time-lapse segment, I don't think I'm doing too hot in the financial department, and I end up taking out a couple loans. But in the end of everything, I'm thriving. So, it was all worth it. Now I'm doing the station for this, I was inspired by the brick building that I put down to replace that one diagonal building. So just pulling the same colors from that. And this station was very generic. It came out pretty fine. It's nothing special, and it was pretty fast. Unlike the other station building in this park, which took me a solid, I'd say, hour and a half, 2 hours. It's pretty elaborate, but you'll see. I'm getting ahead of myself. So now I'm just recoloring the wild mouse, bringing more yellows into the park because of the yellow plane that's like on top of the entrance building. I pulled that yellow a few times just to give everything a cohesive look. And I'm just decorating as much as I can. With the little money that I have left, I have like 300 bucks. So I'm just letting the game run a bit while I put some path decor down, filling it up with greenery, and then I take out a loan. So taking out loans in this game is honestly a bit overpowered, I think, because the monthly payments, or the like additional fees that you have to pay other than repaying the loan, are nothing. It's like 150 bucks a month compared to taking out 10,000. So the loans are very forgiving, which I think is nice because I'm not really in it for the crazy management aspect. I mean, it's fun too, but I would much rather have a bunch of money and just do whatever I want with it than be struggling to keep the park afloat and not go bankrupt. So I finally have enough money to continue expanding this area, so I put down another building that's very similar to the very first one that we built. I think it's like the exact same colors and everything. And then this is like sort of the transition area into a sort of space-themed area. So I end up putting a rocket ship in the middle of the wild mouse and some like very vaguely outer space decor to try and differentiate this third of the park from the main entrance and plaza area. And I like how it came out. Whenever I've played scenarios in the past throughout this campaign mode, I've never had different themed areas, so that was something I wanted to try out, and I think it came out nice. I think it's realistic for a park to have sort of themed areas, but not really. Like, you'll see, the theming isn't like crazy or anything. It's just a few props here and there, and the lighting that I did kind of gives it a more spacey vibe, but I don't know, maybe there's no use talking about it until y'all can see it. But I'm putting down a gyro spinning dropping tower, which in real life is one of my favorite rides. I love these things. But I don't think I made it tall enough. Like, making things tall enough in this game is something I've had trouble with in the past because the scale is a little bit wonky. I feel like the guests are really big compared to the roller coasters. So I never know how tall to make anything. And I think the tower could have been a little bit taller, but it's not a big deal. The guests still love it, so it's all good. I'm just covering up the queue over here, and then we're almost done with this first time-lapse segment because we're getting very, very close to completing the campaign, which I wasn't expecting, but after I took that loan out, everything just like started going really fast and the guests started rolling in, and the only goal that you have to complete for this one scenario is to reach 250 guests. So I'm getting very, very close and just trying to put some last minute touches on the park before I head off, but I end up not completing everything that I wanted to finish before having to hop into our first little live action segment. Okay, so I was planning on playing a little bit more before the first not time-lapse segment of this video, but the goal is to get 250 guests in the park, and I have 249. So I have to go ahead and start recording now if I want to capture this on camera. So we did just complete the scenario, I think. Just waiting for the confetti. Should be coming soon. There it is. Okay. So I still have a lot of work to do, so we're gonna hop into another time lapse, but I wanted to capture that moment because I didn't get to last time. So I'm glad that I did today. But I'll give you guys a quick little tour of everything that's been going on so far. So I just have kind of a little plaza here. Not really a main street, just a couple buildings. Like I said, I'm going for a sort of modern aesthetic, so very like blocky and boxy. And then I did go ahead and put the plane carousel here, like pretty much everyone else does. And just a quick little path cover. Then we have the twister, and it's also covered up by a little roof. And then we have the gravitron. And then I built another wild mouse. I wanted to build not a wild mouse, but you know, it's a good, easy roller coaster to build, and the guests really like it, so it's all good. And then I put down this tower, and I called it the rocket launch. So this area is like mildly space themed. I put down a little rocket ship, and then we have this little spotlight turret? Is that how you say that? And we're just gonna expand it a little bit more, and then that's probably gonna be the end of this side of the park. But over here, on this side, I'm hoping to put down a more intense roller coaster, because that's really what I want to make sure I have in this park, and I'm gonna be sad if I don't get to. Oh, and over here I tried to do a bit of a diagonal building. You probably saw in the time lapse I struggled quite a bit with this, but I don't know if I like how it came out. I see a lot of people doing diagonal buildings to break away from like the grid-based building of this game. So I tried to go for that, and I don't know if I was successful or not. I think it's fine. It's definitely something that I have to keep playing around with. But that's pretty much it. I don't think there's anything else to talk about. So we're just gonna hop right back into the time lapse and maybe see me finishing up this park. Alright, well now it's time to get this park finished. So I'm putting down a Ferris wheel, and that's going to be the last ride of this outer spacey area of the park. Other than that, there's like an extra little food court building, and I wanted it to be sort of different, but not too different from the other buildings in the park, to give it some differentiation, but not a crazy amount. Because in my mind, these were buildings that maybe already existed here, and they just touched them up a little bit to fit the theming of the park. So I'm working on that now. Just a bathroom and 3 custom food stalls, which were so nice to have during this scenario, so that I didn't have to worry about things clipping through the roof or whatever, because when I'm using the regular stalls, you always have to make sure that the roof is taller than the stall, and some of the stalls have really big decorations on top of them, like the burger stall. Anytime that I try to build around it, I always feel like there's some lettuce poking out of the walls. So having the customizable shops was definitely an upgrade from Maple Meadows. And you can see the trim around the whole building is like black, and that sort of gave cartoony vibes to me, like how there's line art on cartoons. So I don't know, for some reason that felt spacey. So maybe this is like a kiddie area. I don't know what I'm talking about. Voiceovers are so hard. I never would have expected it to be this hard to talk for like 50 minutes straight, because I love to talk, but this is a lot even for me. But I think, you know, I'm just gonna keep trucking along. Anyway, just wrapping up this building, I put some scaffolding here on the side, and that scaffolding item comes back a couple times throughout this park once I realize that I have it, because I feel like it fits the theme very well. The Ferris wheel was a big hit with the guests, and I don't know why, because any other time I've ever placed down a Ferris wheel, the queue is not full like that. I don't like Ferris wheels. I think they're boring. Maybe if they're like huge, then it's nice to like get up there and have a nice view of everything, but those tiny Ferris wheels like that does nothing for me. So I don't understand why the guests in this game love them so much, but, you know, to each their own. So here I'm messing around with some of the lighting, and that was a big moment for me. I really wanted to have this park come to life at night, because in the morning the colors are so gray and like dull. So by having these like really fun neon lights at night, I just thought it made everything a bit more fun. But now we're going to build the big roller coaster of this park, which was a lot of fun. This isn't based off of anything in real life. This is the vertical drop coaster, I think is what it's called in-game, and it's based off of the Eurofighter model, which I don't think I've ever ridden, but they look really fun. And there's a lot of loops and just turns, and they go really fast, and they have these tiny little cars. So when I unlocked this coaster through the research, I knew that I wanted to put one down. And this was fun. You know, it was my first time ever building one of these in the game, I think, so I didn't really know what I was doing. And because the space that we have to work with in this park is so narrow, I couldn't really copy an existing layout for one of these roller coasters, so I kind of just did my own thing, and I think it came out okay. So there's a big loop. I knew that I wanted to have a big loop after the vertical drop, and then that goes into like a corkscrew, into an overbanked turn, and then there's like a helix, and then after that, I had no idea what I wanted to do, and everything changes like 20 times while I'm trying to figure everything out, because it was hard to not let this coaster lose speed, and it was also hard because I had to get it back to the station without a lot of wiggle room, so it ends up just going through itself a bit, which is fine, I think. I don't know how this park would be able to afford a custom model of a very popular roller coaster, but, you know, maybe not everything has to be so grounded in reality. Maybe this is just a video game. So I guess I shouldn't be too hard on myself about it. But this is the start of our final themed area, so one of two, and it's based on like factories and warehouses and industrial architecture. So I end up calling this roller coaster the Revolution, like the Industrial Revolution, which, I don't know, I think it's a little funny. But this wasn't themed to the Industrial Revolution, just like, you know those like old brick warehouses and factories? That's what I was going for. And the station for this ends up kind of looking like a train station, I think. It's kind of cool. Uh, it might be one of my favorite things that I've built in this game. So I end up having to move the station because I wanted it to end in a corkscrew going over the like barrel roll or 0G roll, but it's kind of a rough landing. It's a very like steep incline or steep decline to end on, I think, but no, it's okay. In real life, it would definitely be a bit smoother, but again, this is just a game, so not everything has to be perfect. And I'm just placing down 2 rides because I was running out of money again, and I needed to have them there ready for me to decorate them so that I could start making money. But after I open this roller coaster, the money just flows in. It's crazy how much money I end up having, because I don't know, something about it, like the guests just love it. The guests love high intensity, very high excitement roller coasters, and I do too. So now we're starting on the station building, and I do these big archways, and it's a very grand building for a park like this, but it ends up working, I think. We're just blueprinting these brick pillars that I made out of shapes, and one thing I do regret about this park is not using the shapes as much as I did during Maple Meadows. There were definitely some parts or areas of this park that could have been spruced up a little bit if I had used shapes, but they just, I guess, didn't cross my mind as much. But this station is coming along pretty well. I guess it didn't take that long. In my head, this took longer, but this time-lapse seems to be going by pretty quick. So yeah, this is just based on a few different references of old warehouses and factories that I wanted to go for, and I really like how it came out. And this inspires the rest of this area, which has, I think, just one other building. There's like a food court-ish building here to the side where the employee path is. But yeah, I'm just decorating as much as I can, hoping that everything looks good and presentable. And it came out pretty nice. I'm just putting down the lights, and I think these cables are the last touch. I'm like pretty sure. And then if you look in the bottom left, we're making so much money right now. So at this point, I'm not worried about finances at all, and I can just live free of my financial burdens and decorate to my heart's content, which is so fun. You know, part of me thinks that maybe if I played this game in sandbox mode, I would have even more fun, but I've only ever played the campaign, and I really love the campaign, so maybe I'll tackle the sandbox a different day. But I'm just covering up the path to the top spin, and all of the roofs in this area are like gray or black, very dry, drab colors, like I said. And this sort of angled roof, where there's like a bunch of roofs on like a slope, is very typical of factories, I think. So many references that I saw had this type of roof, so I knew that I needed to incorporate that somehow. But this building, I don't know. I think maybe if it was 2 stories instead of 1, it would have looked a bit better. But I also had trouble with the double Ferris wheel clipping into the roof, so I had to flatten that side down, and I think it still clips like the tiniest bit, but you know, if you just look at it from far away, it's not an issue. And I think it clips on this side too, on this queue cover. So don't ride that, or you're gonna break your feet on the roofs of the buildings. So definitely doesn't meet the safety requirements, but it's okay. You know, as long as no one sues, then I don't see an issue. So we're pretty much done with this area, and I'm just putting down some more decorations. And then the rest of this time lapse is really just the finishing details. So there's not too much more to talk about. I'm putting catwalks down on the tracks right now, and I wish that I could have done that on the mid-course brake run, but because it was on a diagonal, I couldn't figure out a way to make it work. So there's only a little bit of time left, so I'm just going to take this time to thank everyone so much for all of the support on my first ever video. It is really heartwarming to see that people are enjoying the content that I'm putting out there, so it means a lot to me, and thank you. And now we're completely done. So, bye! So, welcome to Chanute Airfield. We are fully done with this park, I think, so I'm just gonna give everyone a bit of a tour. So we have this central plaza sort of area where I built, I don't know, it's like a food court. I don't know what you would call this style. I was just like kind of inspired by industrial architecture and then like pulling a little bit of what was given to me. You know, like the default buildings in the scenario. I put the plane carousel over here, and then we have the Twister and the Gravitron. So this is a very, like, not themed, you know, generic area. And I like how it came out. I think it's actually my favorite area of the park, because we sort of have 3 different areas. Moving on over here, this is a very mildly space-themed area. So my idea was that maybe at first this wasn't space themed, and then they went and added a couple of props here and there to make it a bit more atmospheric for the guests. So just a little rocket and this like turret, and then with this building I tried to go for sort of like a spacey sci-fi theme, but still drawing elements of the buildings that we already had in the park. So this is definitely like a more recent addition to the park. And we have a little Wild Mouse coaster, which is broken right now. So I'll just speed it up and then we can take a ride. But we also do have a Ferris wheel and a drop tower. Okay, we have a car coming through. So this is just a very, very basic Wild Mouse layout. Pretty much the same as the Wild Mouse that I put down in Maple Meadows. So, nothing crazy. It just goes down a little bit. And then this one stops quite a lot throughout the layout, because I needed to have a lot of trains coming through, or cars coming through, so that we can make money. Because this scenario was a little bit more of a challenge than Maple Meadows. I had to take out some loans, but right now we're very much thriving in the money department. So, very happy with how the park is operating. And yeah, that's it. I called it Blast Off. It's like space, there's like a little rocket. No, nothing crazy. And then on the other side of the park, we have this more industrial area with, you know, like factory buildings. I thought it would be cool to sort of theme this park around industry and like vehicles. So we have like the planes, and then like the rockets, and then over here I put like a little car. I don't know, this could be like a car factory. And I wanted to use rides that like reminded me of like gears, and so like the top spin like spins, and the Ferris wheel has a kind of industrial look to it, I think, like the double Ferris wheel. I like this area a lot. The theming is a bit heavy, I think, for a family park, but you know, it's also not like outrageous. But we can go ahead and ride this coaster called Revolution, like the Industrial Revolution. It's kind of a dumb name, but yeah, this is a, I forget what they're called, a vertical drop coaster. Um, but the real life counterpart is the Eurofighter, but I didn't base it too much off of the Eurofighter because Eurofighters, I think, take up a bit more space than this, but there's definitely some elements that are similar. So, you know, just loops and helixes and corkscrews, big zero-G roll into like the tiniest mid-course brake run of all time. But it does stop. I couldn't get the catwalks to work diagonally. Unfortunately, I wish I could. I don't know, it stopped so long. Something going on? Oh, it's broken. Oh my god. Okay. You know what? We'll write it from the beginning. There you go. So yeah, we do a big fat loop into this like corkscrew into overbanked turn? Is that what that's called? And then a helix into the little zero-G roll into the mid-course brake run. And then this is like the tiniest second half of the ride. It's just like a turnaround into a corkscrew into the brakes. But it's nice that it's kind of gloomy out because I can give you guys a look at the park in the nighttime. I worked harder than I did at Maple Meadows with the lighting in this park because I wanted it to be nice and bright and colorful at night because it's so gray and kind of drab when it's like the morning time. So the lights kind of bring it to life and gives everything a lot more color. Like, I feel like this looks really cool. It's like an aurora borealis reflecting off of this building. The space themed area is also pretty bright when it's dark out. Just turn it nighttime so you can see it better. Like, isn't that cool? Like, I feel like that just looks really cool. And definitely helps push this park into, like, the next level, I guess. But yeah, I don't know if I would say I'm as proud of this as I was of Maple Meadows, but I think I did an okay job. You know, I'm not really used to building in this style. Maple Meadows was, like, my style, my very, like, go-to style. So it was fun to experiment with things I've never done before. I really like how this station building came out, even though it might be a bit much for this park. I definitely want to play around with this style again. It kind of looks like a train station or something. I don't know. I really like it. And I hope that you guys had fun watching me build this park. It took kind of a long time, but, you know, it was worth it. So I'll just go ahead and exit back. I did already unlock the sort of building that you get after you complete each scenario, and then we did get the gold scenario goals beaten, which was great. And we get this little plane that spins whenever you click it. So every time that passes, I do have to watch it do a little spin. Next time, I think we're going to be tackling Victoria Lake. just because it's a little bit more to the left of Western Roundup. And I think it's supposed to go like third because the goals are easier. Um, but anytime I've played through this campaign mode before, I've had a bit of trouble on Victoria Lake. I've fully gone bankrupt a couple times playing it, so we'll see how everything goes. I don't really know what I'm gonna be attempting with that park. Probably a bit of like an American, like Main Street, Disneyland kind of feel. And then Western Roundup is also an option, but I think I'm gonna save that for the 4th episode. But yeah, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see everyone next time. Bye!